All right. Well, we are, as everyone is suspecting, continuing on with the Imitation of Christ. We're on chapter 24, which is a chapter on the Last Judgment. And I'm going to grab my glasses, which I'm just realizing I need.
Old age again.
You're just trying to get on my good side now. All right. Chapter 24 on the last judgment and the punishment of sin. All right. So I'm going to preface this with we're going to be basically taking this apart piece by piece to kind of come up with a way of using it in life in a positive way, in a meaningful way. I'm not going to make any final statements on whether this is an actual event that will happen or not happen. I don't think it's necessary to have that conversation. If it's helpful to you to believe that this is the way it is, and that encourages you to live a more careful and positive life, then all the more power to that. Go forward and love God. If you don't think that this is something that's helpful to you, then by all means, like Ramakrishna says about Scripture, that Scripture is a collection of sand and sugar. And it's up to you to sort out the sand from the sugar, and the sand you discard and the sugar you consume. So you can take this framing of an event in that light. So I'm going to leave it at that. If we want to have more conversation about that, we can certainly do that. But this is not apologetics, really. This is just trying to dig into the things that the Christian scriptures and mystics have said, and to view them through the lens of the Vedanta, in order to deepen their meaning for us and give us a workable insight that will train us and take us forward. So chapter 24, on the last judgment and the punishment for sin. In all things, look to the end and how you will appear before the strict judge. All right, that's that one. Things like that we can use quite easily. That self discernment is absolutely important, and it's something that should go on all the time. It doesn't end in judgment. It's not helpful to make judgments. It's helpful to use it in order to change your behaviors, to say, wow, that's not working. The fruit of that was more pain. The fruit of that was suffering. I think I'm not going to be doing that anymore. Oh, the fruit of that was wonderful. It brought me closer to a sense of dignity and a sense of happiness. So I'm going to stick with that. So this idea, in all things, look to the end. Look at what is the effect of these things going to be. Because we read this morning in the Advaita class that all desires can start a long chain of reactions. And so it's good to suss that out, to look inside and to see what will fulfilling this desire do for me. And a great indication of that is what has fulfilling this desire done for me in the past. Does it have a lasting solution? Does this desire, can you take care of it through fulfilling it? Or does that just put you on a treadmill? Because some desires, you fulfill them and immediately the hunger returns. And the more you fulfill them, the more refined your hunger becomes and the more intense you feel it and the less able to say no to it you are. And so ultimately it ends in an addictive cycle where you're constantly seeking the pleasure of that particular desire. So this is what he's saying. He's taking a look closely at the end results of your choices, the things that you're deciding to do. And those ones that are helpful to you, keep them. And those ones that are not, renounce them, put them away, be done with it. Nothing is hidden from him, from the divine, right? Because the divine is you. So yeah, that's why the idea of vice, that's why the idea of escaping your awareness is an absurdity. There's many psalms that talk about that. Where can I go where you are not present? There's a wonderful story. I think it was Hafiz that I heard the story of, that he was sitting in the shrine and someone was was troubled by his feet sort of pointing toward the front of the shrine. And they come to him and they chastise him and scold him and say, "You should never point your feet at the deity, don't do it." And Hafiz, in an enlightened state, he says, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Can you please take my feet for me and move them in a direction in which he is not?" Right? So there's that knowledge. God is everywhere present and always perfect, always of the nature of love and wisdom. And so when he says here, nothing is hidden from him, think of it in those terms. It's like the beloved is aware of everything. And it's not the great Santa Claus in the sky perspective where he's keeping his list of who's naughty and who's nice. What a waste of time for a God of love to be doing this, especially because he authored his own statement that love keeps no record of wrongs. So he's not interested in that. What he's interested in is you attaining your highest ideal, you finding your freedom, right? He's interested in marrying you, in having that union with you. So nothing is hidden from him, neither will he accept bribes nor receive excuses. In case you were wondering. In case you were thinking you were going to pay the old man off at the end and get away with everything. Not a good strategy. Don't do it. Excuses, you can give him a shot. Any indications that we have, they don't go well because he knows your mind already. He actually is your mind already. Yes.
Back in European days, hundreds of years ago, they had this thing called indulgences. So if the nobles or whoever had money committed some indiscretion, they could basically pay off the priest and have an indulgence and be excused from their sin. So maybe that's what he's referring to.
Yeah, no doubt. It's certainly a mentality. Yeah, those indulgences were for the future. That makes them even worse. You didn't pay off what you had already done. You went and bought an indulgence so that you could go do it. You were going to have a big party this weekend, so you'd go and pay up a little at the local priesthood and get your ticket for indulgence that weekend. So anyway, he says, neither will he accept bribes nor receive excuses, really saying that this is all a matter of honesty within yourself. When you look at yourself, don't make excuses for your behaviors, for your shortcomings. Don't make room for them. It's not helpful to your life. It's not helpful to your joy, to your well-being. So watch yourself, because we do offer ourselves bribes and we do offer ourselves excuses when we judge ourselves, when we discern our own nature. We reward ourselves with vices, right? That's a bribe, it's like, or we allow ourselves a lesser crime, in place of the greater crime or something along those lines. But really, he's just saying, deal with yourself in truth. Look honestly at your life. If it needs help, then give it help. Don't judge yourself for it. Don't hang up on it. Just be honest. If there's something you're doing that's not right, or if you're responsible for a wrong, go apologize. Go fix. Like Jesus says, in as much as it has to do with you, live in peace. So it's like that. Take responsibilities for yourself. Look squarely at who you are, but knowing that you're not the mind and you're not the body. You don't have to identify with it. You don't have to put on the big A on your shirt and walk around humiliated. The truth of the matter is, you are ever free already. You and the divine, you are made in that image, and that image doesn't go away. That image is always present. And so remember that and hold on to that. And as you raise your toddlers, your body and your mind, as you're bringing them up and nurturing them and taking care of them, deal with them in truth and honesty, and lead them in the way that leads to bliss, to joy, to the fulfillment of your nature. He will judge all things rightly and truly. Yes, he's the perfect discernment, which is why discernment works, because it is God, because thou art that essence within you that does discern is the inner guru. That is the divine. That is the divine presence. And so it is trustworthy, and it will lead you to better ways, to better things, to a more contented life, a more fulfilling life. Wretched sinner that you are, what answer will you then give your God, who knows all your evil deeds, when here you are afraid to face an angry human being? Right? Okay, I'm not sure the point of all that. Suddenly, wretched sinner that you are, okay, you are not that wretched sinner, but you experience a sinner, in the sense that you are untouchable beyond the pale of right and wrong in your true nature, right? But in your ego self, you could be called a wretched sinner. That might be bad news, but it's just the way it is. In the ego self, we can't really help it, because our sense of self is small. Our sense of self is needy and hungry, and needs constant attention. And sometimes that attention is above and beyond what we give to others or what we care about others. So, that is the nature of the divine, of the ego, and it's why we are working to transcend, to get ourselves to let go of this egoism, of this idea of being a temporary body mind that's always hungry and needy. So, your answer before the divine, there's not any hiding from it. When you sit in that shrine, you're open. And I say the shrine just because that's sort of the metaphor we use for the presence of God. But in fact, you have to live with yourself. You are always aware of your own doings. You can't sneak one by God, because God is your very self. You can't sneak one by yourself. You know what you're doing. And so be aware of that. Understand that. Don't think that you're being successful because you can pull one over on yourself, right? That you can go ahead and keep eating 6 pieces of cake every day. It's going to catch you. It's going to catch up to you, And so understand that. Who knows all your evil deeds, when here you are afraid to face an angry human being, right? It's like, I don't know, I guess in this world, there's a lot of ways to get around things. But in your relationship with yourself, there's not. That's really what he's talking about. In your relationship with yourself, you have to deal honestly and truthfully and with great integrity. If you don't, you're going to suffer, right? Call that hell if you want to. Hell isn't a place. Hell is an experience, right? And it's the experience of the person who lives contrarily to his divine nature. Breaks the rules of love, breaks the rules of wisdom, and tries to cut the corners. So if you live like that, it's going to be painful for you. That's the bottom line. There's no artificial way around it. Even if you're getting away with it in the sense that you have now become a murderer and you're still happy and smiling and enjoying your life, that mark is still there. That pain within you is still there. The suffering that compromise is causing in your life is within you. I remember reading, or not reading, I was watching a YouTube documentary on one of these mob bosses in New York that got, he wasn't a mob boss. He worked for the mob, and he was an exterminator. So he would kill whoever the mob told him to kill. But his wife and kids thought he was a used car salesman and thought that he worked at this car dealership, and that's all that they knew. And he eventually gets caught, and they're interviewing him for this documentary. And he's very glib about the whole thing as he's telling all of his stories of the people that he'd killed and how he killed them and whatnot. There's not much sorrow going on there. There's not much remorse going on there. But then at the end of the interview, the interviewer asks him a question: is there anything that you regret? And it is an amazing scene, because you can see him trying with all of his might to hide behind the bravado that has taken him this far in that interview. And he can't, because he admits at the end that the one thing he regrets is losing his entire family. You know, that when they found out the truth, you know, when his wife found out who he really was, when his son found out who he really was, he lost them forever. And at that point, he begins, you see the tears of a broken man, not a hurt man, a completely devastated, broken man. It was so hard to watch. And that's exactly what is going on here. You know, it's like you can get away with stuff in your life, but the mark is in here. And there is a reckoning for it. You know, not by some third party angry finger pointing thing in the sky. It's you, your own self, are the watcher of your own behaviors, your own decisions. And you are well aware of how they are affecting you and what they are doing. And yes, you can buy time by ignoring them. But there will come a time where you can't ignore it anymore, where it comes to the forefront, when karma demands its payment. And there you are, standing in this situation, just as he's outlining it here. Why do you not provide for that day of judgment now, since there will be no one to defend or make excuses for you? For everyone will have enough to answer for, will have enough to do to answer for oneself. He's basically saying, you know, do the right thing, and do the right thing now. Don't put it off into the future. Look at your behaviors now. If you need to apologize to that person, go apologize to that person. You know, if you need to quit drinking, you know, throw that bottle out now. Don't put that bottle back in the cabinet and think you'll throw it out later, or that you'll serve your guests with it. You know, Gary Floyd, one of my good friends who just recently passed away, really demonstrated this to me one time. I was over at his apartment in San Francisco, and he was doing Weight Watchers at that time. And one of his friends had brought him a pie. Just had brought him this pie. And when Gary walked into the kitchen and saw this pie sitting on the counter, he turned to me and he said, "Pray for me. I've got to do something that is horribly difficult for me." I said, "Okay." And he picked that pie up and he walked over and he put it face down in the trash can and poured coffee grinds over it. All right. This is what he's talking about here, right? If you know you need to do something, do it, you know, for your betterment. If you need to right a wrong, do it. If you need to make a payment, do it. You know, if you need to make a change, do it. Don't put it off. It's for your own benefit. You'll be happy that you did it. It will do you well. Enjoy that. Don't continue putting things off, because you're fooling yourself. There's no one else to fool. You're fooling yourself. All right. Now you can gain merit. Your tears and sighs are heard, and your sorrow and repentance are acceptable. Right? If you do it now, it will be well for you. Your life is going to improve. Doing the right thing in the moment is always the best policy. It's the only way for you to live a fulfilling life. It's the only way for you to be free in yourself. It's the only way to maintain dignity and a self-respect within yourself, a love for yourself. It's the only way to get away from sarcasm and cynicism, you know, which are just ways of living with a lack of integrity inside. That's what causes that sarcasm and that cynicism. You know, when you've broken your inner integrity and you have to somehow be able to laugh despite that, that's what those tools come in for. So escape that. Make it a positive thing now. Don't let it grow. Don't let it fester. Don't let it make you bitter or angry. Deal with it now. Okay? Number 2, patient people have a wholesome purgatory in this world, who, enduring the wrong of another, are more concerned with the sin committed than with the injury done to them. They will pray willingly for their enemies, and from their hearts forgive those who offend them. They are quick to ask others for forgiveness. They are more easily moved to compassion than to anger. And putting restraint upon themselves, they resist sin and bring their bodies under subjection. So he said, this is just a description of a healthy person. That a person is not always looking out for themselves and not always concerned about how other people's actions are affecting them. They're just more concerned about people doing the right thing, about themselves doing the right thing. So they'll apologize quickly if they need to apologize. They'll accept an apology easily if someone else apologizes. So it's just that person who is being led or inspired by their nature of Satchitananda, by the love that they are, by the wisdom that they are, through their being, that if they live accordingly to their nature, this is what they're going to look like, and their lives are going to be great. Their lives are going to be fine, right? Because they will know what to do in the moment to maintain that integrity, to maintain that joy. It is better to get rid of sins now, doing away with your bad habits, than to wait to have them purged hereafter. We truly deceive ourselves by our unrestrained self-love, right? And this is the self-love, meaning the lower self-love, the love of self as an ego, the love of self as, this is enjoying your arrogance. This is enjoying your accomplishments. This is enjoying your vices, giving yourself permission for vices. This is the unrestrained self-love that he's talking about now on this plane. He says, but it's better to get rid of things that are not helpful to you. It's better to get rid of the things that are hurting you. And you may have to go through the discernment process to find out that they're hurting you, to find out that they're not best for you, but do that. And if you find things are not serving you, do away with them. Don't put it off until later. Number 3, what will the eternal fires devour but your sins? Yeah, this statement both it does what he wants it to do in that he makes you aware that your sin or your wrong thinking or your wrongdoings are the thing that is burning you, are the thing that is causing you pain, causing you suffering in your life. That is true. But then he says, but when he has an eternal fire devouring your sins, that fire is going to go out if it's devouring your sin, because there's not an endless amount of sin there. There's a finite amount of sin there. And if you've got an eternal fire burning on finite sins, it's going to run out and go out. It's not going to be an eternal fire. It's going to go out. So what will the eternal fires devour but your sin? So what we'll take from that is just that notion. Realize that your sin is what causes the ruin of your life. Your wrong thinking, wrongdoing, unhelpful decisions that are not in alignment with your inner integrity, not in alignment with your nature, Satchitananda, those things will burn you. Those things will burn you and will cause you suffering, will cause you pain. The more you spare yourself now, and the more you give in to the clamors of the flesh, the more bitterly you will regret it hereafter, and the more fuel you will store up for those fires. So he's continuing the bad metaphor, but just that notion, it's, don't think of it in terms of a final judgment, just think of it in terms of what's helpful in this moment. It's like, understand, you're in charge of the things that hurt you. Don't do them. That's basically all he's saying. You're in charge of them. Don't do them. Do what you need to do now in yourself, and square yourself now and go forward. Persons shall be punished most for those sins in which they have offended most. The slothful will be pricked with red-hot spikes. The gluttons will be tormented with great hunger and thirst. The lovers of luxury and dissipation will be immersed in sulfur and burning pitch, and the envious will wail and howl like mad dogs. All right. This is true also in another perspective. Again, if we keep it in a final judgment, this little paragraph here makes no sense, because there's no point. There's no point in hurting somebody if you're not giving them a chance to redemption. If that hurting them is of no point, meaning you're just doing it to punish them, that's a very dead-ended game. I mean, how much punishment does a person deserve for having, lived a lusty life? It's like, are you going to drag that punishment on forever? In that sense, where is that going to go? So it's not really about that. But what this is about is that karma, the way that karma is set up, you have to be both parts of the equation. If you're the one that bullies in elementary school, there's a very good chance that on your next time around, you're the one going to be bullied. You're going to get the experience of how you treat others, right? That's how we learn, and that's how we grow in awareness. What you do unto others will be done to you. So that's why that's the perfect cause, if you need one, for the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? You'll save yourself from this curse right here by doing unto others what you would have them do unto you, by living according to your nature. Really, it all comes back to that. It's very straightforward. It's not difficult. So he's just saying here, those things that you do to others that you think you're getting away with, know that that's not how this world is put together. This world is put together so it's self-correcting, which means when you do bad things and make wrong decisions, you get hurt. There's an alarm that goes off to teach you, hey, that's not a good idea. Don't do that one. You're going to suffer by making you suffer. That's how you become aware of it. And that's why there's so much suffering, because if we're always happy, we don't change, because we're totally content to be the way we are as long as we can laugh and be happy in it. But when we suffer, that, like Sri Nisargadatta says, that's your invitation to what? To inquiry. Go looking for that attachment. There's an attachment in there to a temporary thing that is causing you to act in a non-eternal way, in a way that is not expressive of what and who you are. That's so yes, these attachments are built into the system. The system is self-correcting. Pay attention to that pain. Understand that the way you treat others will be the way you will be treated, and go forward. Learn the lessons and move on. No sin will be without its proper punishment. Okay. If you thought you were going to slip away with one, well, but actually this statement is not entirely true either, because this statement does not allow for grace. And God's grace is prominent. It's at the forefront of the experience of God. And so you always can take refuge in grace, right? And we'll find safety and we'll find refuge. Like Holy Mother says, if your karma demanded that you be run through with a sword, then doing practice and sitting in refuge with the divine, it may be just a single prick with a pin on your finger, will be all the payment that's required. If it's not completely forgiven. I mean, at that point, what would be the point? Like God would be like, no, get over here. I have to prick you. Come on. I have to prick you. So it is a true statement in the sense that if you are purely karmic, yes, everything has a cause and effect. You do wrong things, you're going to get wrong things back. You're going to live in pain. Yes, that's true. That is true. But if you become aware of your actions and you cry out, oh my God, I've got these bad habits. I'm in desperate need of fixing these habits. One, you get that strength, to fix those habits. You get that ability, but you also get that grace, the reason to fix those habits. If you had to pay for them all, Grace is the thing that puts us back up on our feet. Grace is the thing that restores us. And so we go forward in confidence and love instead of having to cower in fear in front of something we call our beloved, right? So no sin will be without its proper punishment, unless there's grace, unless there's taking refuge in the divine. For the proud person will be filled with shame, and confusion and covetous will waste away in poverty and need. 1 hour of pain there will be more grievous than 100 years spent in rigorous penance here. Again, why? Because here it does some good. Here you get an opportunity of redemption. There, why would God make it 10 times worse if it's not producing any good? Why would that be done? Right? So again, there's elements of fear mongering here, which can be beneficial. I'm not going to speak out against them. If you are such a sloppy, if you're so sloppy at life that you're just not getting it together at all, you might need a good smack up the side of your head with this kind of thing. You might need somebody to say, look, if you don't get it together right now, it's going to be 10 times worse, and it's going to be in a manner that you don't have any expectation for. You better watch it. And if that helps you change, if that brings you out of your slumber and brings you to a state of awareness, yay. Very cool. So this could be why this is here, and it might be why you believe it, if it is a part of your belief structure, because it might be that you've gotten to a point in life where this is the only way God can touch you, that God can reach you, is playing hardball, throwing you up against the wall every now and saying, look, I've been telling you for 493 million lives so far to stop slapping your mother. And you're still slapping your mother. So I'm going to slap the tarnation out of you right now. And I'm just going to keep doing it as long as I want to do it so that you will stop slapping your mother. Right? It can get to this point. And this may be why the beloved has put together Christianity with this perspective, because you need a good slap. There is no rest or comfort for the damned. Well, that's true. It is true. You can't get away from yourself. If you become a despicable person, you're going to know at some level, no matter how deeply you've buried it, that you're a despicable person. And it's going to keep you awake. And it's going to bother you. It's going to hound you. You're going to need a lot of distractions in this world to survive. And unfortunately, the world provides a lot of distractions. But no, there's suffering there. And it's just putting it off. It's just putting it off. Sometimes here, we have periods of rest from work and the consolation of our friends. Be sorry for your sins now, so that on the day of judgment you may be secure in the company of the blessed. Yeah. Perfectly reasonable thing. Make your changes now. Empower yourself to be what you want to be, and make those changes and go forward. Don't put them off for any reason. There's no reason for it. To clear your conscience is to clear your conscience. And it's a wonderful thing to sit freely in meditation with a clear conscience. It's really the only way you can sit in meditation is with a clear conscience. If you don't have a clear conscience, your meditation's going to be about the thing that's bothering you. You're going to sit there bemoaning, whatever it is that you've done, or whatever it is that you think that you're letting yourself get away with. You're going to sit there, and that's just going to keep looping around. It's because those things that we do out of the ideas of me and mine are the things that stir the thoughts, that keep the mind from being calm and being clear. And so if you're trying to meditate and simultaneously living a life that's stirring me and mine into the lake of thought in the mind, there's not much rest for you. There's not much freedom for you. And there certainly is not much enjoyment of God for you, right? Because you won't let yourself. Your own mind will chase you with its own stick. Then shall the just stand with great constancy against those who have persecuted and oppressed them. All right. This is the Revenge of the Nerds movie. That's what's being talked about here. So you get to watch all those terrible, mean people get their comeuppance, right? And so you can stand there in the balcony of heaven looking over and be like, yeah, I'll do it again. But if that is where your love and compassion has led you and made of you, where you would delight in the suffering of even your enemies, that's not really much like the unconditional love that we worship as our highest ideal. So I'm doubtful that this scenario will be one that would be carried on in an arena where God is manifesting purely. Well, I can't say that because this does happen in this world and we do enjoy it. You know, I have to say, you know, they do have those YouTube videos on where the bully gets his comeuppance. And I tell you, I love to watch those. I love to watch those. I just watched one earlier, you know, the 3 worst Karens get their comeuppance with the judge. And I watched that and I was like, ooh, yeah. Why? Because we know it's right. And the actual reason for our celebration, if we are discerning, you will see that the actual motivation for your celebration is this finally being called out so that it's getting dealt with. You know, it's not just hurting the person. None of us are comfortable with just hurting somebody, right? But somebody getting their comeuppance for their misbehaviors that they've been putting off and getting away with for so long is pleasurable. Why? Because it's cleansing, it's freeing. And that's where the celebration comes from. You know, the violence is the opportunity, you know? But that's not really what you're looking at, because like I said, I just admitted I watched those 2 videos, but I do not go and watch videos where people are just being mistreated. That kills me, you know, inside. So there is a difference here, and to discern and realize that this is a helpful comeuppance that is going to straighten a person and bring them to a higher space. That's where the celebration is. That's where the joy of it is. Those who humbly submitted themselves to human judgments shall take their stand as judges. Great will be the confidence of the poor and the humble, while the proud will tremble with dread. Yeah. Well, I don't hesitate to say that I think the proud tremble with dread in this world. You know, because any unearned what do you call those adulations will come to an end. You know, every rich man knows the danger of losing everything. And so the pride, the joy of having money is always tempered by the possibility of losing that self-same money or not having enough of it, which is why you have billionaires that are still trying to make billions. You know, you would think that after your first 100 billion, you'd be like, I guess I won this. What's next? You know, so it shows you that there is a little bit of sickness. There is a little bit of derangement in never being able to get enough. And so that never being able to get enough is a hint that there's a piece there you're not looking at. And that is, you're constantly afraid of not having enough. You're constantly afraid of losing what you have. And so you just compulsively try to keep getting more and more and more, hoping to reach a place where that's not true. But in a relative world, there is no place where that is not true, right? Then those who will appear to have been wise in this world, who contented themselves to be taken for fools and despised for the sake of Christ, they will be glad that they suffered tribulation patiently in this world, for all iniquity shall stop its mouth. All right. So we'll give this a little bit of a work here. You know, you'll never be sad that you did the right thing. That's all he's saying. You'll never be sad that you did the right thing. So do the right things, right? Do the right things. Every devout person shall be joyful. Every devout person will be joyful. Because you're rewarded? Not necessarily. It's because it's what you are. It's the way you are. If you live devoutly, if you live with integrity, if you live with service and caring and compassion, you're going to be joyful. That's the way the whole thing's put together. There's no need for a third party out there to be pulling your hair and poking you with, with needles for no reason. Just living life teaches this truth. Every devout person shall be joyful, while the irreligious will be sad. Well, not necessarily irreligious, unless you call irreligious anti-life, meaning you push against the goad. If knowing these things to be true, you still push against them, you're going to be sad. That's all. You have to accept that good begets good and bad begets bad. You just have to know that that's the way the world is, because you created it that way. So deal with it. Stop pushing against the things you know to be true. The flesh that was chastised shall exult more than if it had been pampered with luxuries. The shabby garment shall shine, and the fine clothing look like rags. The poor dwelling shall be more celebrated than the gilded palace. Constant patience shall help more than all worldly power, and simple obedience shall be rated higher than all worldly cunning. Yes, and as a matter of fact, in the world of in the divine eye, it already is. In the divine eye, it already is. So it's not going to be a change in the way things are. It's just a statement of an ongoing fact here. That from the perspective of humanity, from the perspective of the divine within us, these things are all true. That we know that we know these things. Number 6, then a good, clean conscience will make you happier than all the philosophy you have learned, and your contempt of riches will be of more value than all the treasures in the world. This is absolutely true. A good, clean conscience. Wow. There's nothing like a good, clean conscience. What a pointer to freedom that is. What a pointer to bliss that is. What a wonderful inner self-respect is born of a clear conscience. What a joy to be able to sit in the presence of your highest ideal and feel no tinge of shame or no tinge of guilt in that light. So a good, clean conscience will make you happier than all of the philosophy you have learned, and your contempt of riches will be of more value than all the treasures in the world. Right? And this is going to be true at the end of your life anyway. So we could call that the final judgment, perhaps. I keep thinking, my friend Bill had this client for elder care that he took care of. And this person belonged to an incredibly wealthy family in an area. I don't want to get in trouble for somebody finding out who I'm talking about. But this old woman that he was taking care of, she had multiple mansions that she could be living in. Her family had built the symphony hall for the city that she lived in. So very, very, very wealthy woman. And she was dying. And she couldn't get herself out of bed, but she had to be changed. Her diapers had to be changed regularly. And Bill was taking care of all this, but he was watching all of this and he was sharing it. And just that understanding that this woman lived a life where she could do what she wanted, when she wanted. Everyone was there to serve her and her needs. She had numerous, mansions that she could occupy, vacations that she could take. And she spent her life doing that. But in her old age, she was in a single bed, in a single room, unable to change her own diaper. Do you think that she might have been willing to change a few of those days for something different? You know, to where your treasure is, there your heart is also. So if you value the conditions and circumstances that this world offers, and you spend your pursuit and your time and energy in those things, just know that you've made a wrong decision. Why? Because you're going to drop this body and move on. And you're not going to take any of that stuff with you. And so a life spent collecting riches just means a life that ends up in the dumpster the day after the body drops. that's how it goes, right? So value what you are. That's why it's important to know what you are. To know that you're not a body and to know that you're not the mind will free you from the desires of the body-mind, will free you from this temporal cycle, right? As you know yourself. And that is worth more than all the treasures in the world, because it will alleviate your fear when the body begins to drop, because you will be well versed in knowing who you are inside. You are no longer convinced that you're the body, not because you have some pie in the sky belief that you're not the body, but because you've done the work and you've gone inside and you've had the experience and the understanding to know, not an act of faith, but an act of knowing, I am not the body. And you've done the work of quieting the mind and understanding and realizing your relationship with mind indicates you are not the mind. And so knowing these things, as the body begins to drop, you will sit in the space you know to be true through experience, through your effort to see and understand them. And you will watch the body drop, and it'll be somewhat entertaining, I imagine. It'll be interesting. You're like, wow, look at that. The body really did drop off, and I'm still here thinking about it. This is nuts. What a thing, you know? And so this is all he's saying. He says that by living rightly, by doing what you need to do, by keeping your conscience clear, by valuing the things that you should value, by not investing in temporal things that do not last, that you're going to find happiness. You're going to find fulfillment if you do that. You will have more consolation for your devout praying than all the feasts you could have enjoyed. Right? At that moment of the reality, when the body's dropped off, your prayers will be what counted. Your preparations for being able to withdraw yourself from the body-mind will pay off. You're not sitting there in terror at what's going on will pay off. You know, so you can see it all in that perspective, if that's beneficial to you. But it's better to bring it down to this moment, you know, because this moment is where everything is. You know, this moment, you can say that there is a judgment going on at this moment, because karma is being accumulated and karma is being burned simultaneously as we go along here. And so that judgment is happening, and you're getting your heaven and you're getting your hell now. It's just that they're not places and they're not forever. They are an experience of being. If you are experiencing a being according to the nature of your being, you're experiencing heaven. If you're inhabiting an experience of being that is contrary to what you are, you're suffering. That's all the truth of it. And it will go on only as long as you remain committed to whatever path you've chosen. So that's why, if it's not working, change it. If it is working, know it and go deeper. Right? So that's all of this stuff is. When you boil it down and remove the Halloween from it, you come up with some very practical teachings that are very helpful for finding a contentment in the moment with the beloved, with the divine. And if you're responsible, there's not much need for all of the surrounding hobgoblinry, you know, of making this look like a terrible witch's curse, you know, up there. You will be happier for having kept silence than for all the long talks and gossip. Good deeds will be of greater value than clever words, and a disciplined life and hard penance will be more pleasing than all the pleasures of earth. Yeah. At that point after death, especially, because you'll be living in an awareness that you're not the body, which you could be living in now if you were doing your practice and were observing your inner life, and making decisions accordingly. You could have that now, but at least then it's going to be great to know that every effort you made in your virtues, because Vivekananda says the only thing that follows us beyond the grave is our virtue, right? So it's your virtues that follow you. And so if you have spent your investments of this life on virtue, which is what? Living in alignment with your nature of love and wisdom, right? That those things lead to virtue. All things that lead to oneness are virtuous. All things that take you into multiplicity are vice. That's all you have to know. You don't have to list the long lists on both sides. Just use that principle, right? Does this take me into the multiplicity by following this path? Or does this bring me into a union with all things in this path? And you have to discern carefully in that. Therefore, learn to suffer small trials now in order to be saved from greater ones. Better to try here what you may have to suffer hereafter. And if you can endure so little pain now, how will you stand the everlasting torments? If you lose your patience over a small suffering now, what will the fires of hell do hereafter? You cannot have two heavens. It is impossible to enjoy yourself here and afterward to reign with Christ. Yeah, well, that's just stating an obvious. It's not a moral judgment. It's just stating an impossibility. If your joys in this life come from a body, well, when you've dropped the body, you're not going to enjoy it. The source of your enjoyment is gone. You're not going to be happy. You're going to be wanting another body really quickly, right? The faster, the better at that point, so that you can go on with your slavery, enjoying your slavery, right? So you cannot have two heavens. You can't have it both ways. You can't serve the body and the spirit simultaneously, because they're two very different things, as it were, and their needs and inspirations are quite different. One of them will make you constantly hungry for more, and one of them will give you contentment with nothing. And so it's really a matter of where you're going to put your treasure. If you had lived your whole life up to now in honors and pleasures, what good would it do if you suddenly were to die now? Therefore, all is vanity except loving and serving God. Those who love God with their whole hearts need not fear death or punishment, judgment or hell, for perfect love is a sure path to God. But if people still delight in sin and wrong thinking, wrongdoing, it is no wonder that they fear both death and hell. It is good, however, that although love is not perfect enough to withdraw you from evil, at least the fear of hell restrains you. Those who set aside the fear of God will not persevere long in the state of grace, but will soon fall into the snares of the devil. All right. Those who set aside the fear of God will not persevere long in the state of grace. Very interesting statement, and one that causes a little bit of fear inside, but it's a beautiful statement in the sense, replace the fear of God with the respect for God. If grace is for you a license to not worry while you still indulge in your wrongdoing, that's a troublesome situation, and that's going to hurt you in the long run, right? You're going to fall into it. You're going to walk away from your truth if you live like that. If grace is a license for you to continue on doing whatever you want to do, you're going to get bound more and more in what it is that you want to do. And grace is not going to be the thing that frees you from it. So ultimately, you've made a very bad decision. So that's what he's talking about here when he says, when you won't be able to persevere long in a state of grace, if you're using it as a license, if you're not respecting God simultaneously or respecting your own nature, if that's more comfortable language, it means the same thing. If you don't respect your nature of love and wisdom, and you count on grace to cover your payments for your not respecting yourself, for you not respecting your nature, grace is not going to provide you much comfort for very long. It will dissipate, and your bad habits, your wrong thinking, are going to dominate your life, and you're going to be brought to that sadness. You're going to be brought to that pain. So if you accept grace, make sure that you accept with it the respect of the beloved, the respect of your own nature of wisdom and love. And don't see grace as a license. See grace as a means of freedom. That grace is there so that you don't have to keep looking back at all the trouble you've caused, but you can look forward to the success that lies ahead. Grace is permission to approach God. It's a beautiful thing. But if you've got permission to approach God and you have no love of God, no respect for love and wisdom, then what good is it going to do to meet him or her or that? Of course, that's ridiculous, because it would still be wonderful to meet him regardless of your own condition. He can fix anything. But he's going to make you aware of it. You're going to see the truth of yourself one way or the other. Just don't hold on to it. That's really, I think that would be the summary teaching here. It's like face the truth and deal with it and go forward, and all is well with you. If you put it off or hide from it or give yourself license to indulge in it, you will suffer in life, if not hereafter. And so don't. Be free now. This moment is your moment. All right.